The Galactic Council was a powerful assembly, formed by the most advanced and influential species in the universe. For centuries, they had controlled the affairs of many civilizations, making decisions that shaped the future of entire galaxies. Their influence was absolute, and they viewed themselves as the guardians of order in the cosmos. However, one species had caught their attention in recent years: humans. At first, the Council had paid little attention to Earth. Humans were seen as a primitive species, still struggling with their own internal conflicts and wars. But something had changed. Over the past few decades, humans had begun to advance at a rapid pace. They had launched spacecraft, made contact with alien species, and even gained access to technologies that should have been beyond their reach. The Council, wary of this sudden progress, saw potential in humanity, potential they were not ready to accept. The members of the Council gathered in a vast chamber, surrounded by holographic displays of star systems and planetary maps. The room was filled with the leaders of alien species from across the galaxy. Each one looked down on humanity, convinced that Earth was no more than a fleeting curiosity. After long discussions and debates, a decision was made. The Galactic Council would declare humanity a subordinate species. They would not be given a voice in galactic matters. Not yet. The humans were far too young, too unpredictable, and too dangerous to be allowed the same status as more established species. The decision was made swiftly and without hesitation. The Council President, a being of enormous power and ancient wisdom, issued the proclamation. Humanity, he said with a voice that echoed through the chamber, will be treated as a subordinate species. Their access to galactic resources will be limited, and they will have no say in the future of our collective civilization. We will observe them closely, but we will not allow them to have a seat at the table. The declaration sent shockwaves across the room. The representatives of the different species, from towering insect-like beings to sleek, silver-skinned diplomats, nodded in agreement. They all believed that this was the only sensible course of action. Humanity was too unpredictable, too chaotic, to be trusted with any real power. They had to be contained for their own good. On Earth, the news of the Galactic Council's decision spread like wildfire. Humans, who had worked tirelessly to earn their place among the stars, were left stunned and humiliated. The very idea that their species, with all its achievements and potential, would be treated as inferior was almost too much to bear. Yet the human spirit was not easily broken. The leaders of Earth met in secret to discuss the matter. They knew that this was not just an insult, it was a challenge. How could they, as a species, let this stand? The humans had faced adversity before, and they had always risen to meet it. Now, they would do so again. But they could not simply ignore the declaration. A response was needed. They needed someone to represent humanity, someone who would stand before the Galactic Council and show them that humans were not to be underestimated. It was time to prove that Earth was not a species to be pushed around. As the Council's decision hung in the air, a new resolve began to take shape. Humanity would not back down. They would rise, and they would make the Galactic Council regret their decision. The news of the Galactic Council's decision spread across Earth like wildfire, stirring a wave of anger and disbelief. For decades, humans had been working hard to prove their worth in the galaxy. They had pushed the limits of their technology, ventured into the unknown reaches of space, and made contact with alien species. Yet now, they were being treated like a subordinate species, unworthy of a place among the stars. It was more than just an insult. It was a challenge to everything humans had worked for. In a secure meeting room, the leaders of Earth's nations gathered, their faces filled with frustration. The United Nations, along with representatives from other global powers, were in shock. The decision of the Galactic Council was final, but they knew one thing. Humanity couldn't just let this stand. The idea that their entire species could be dismissed so easily was unacceptable. "We cannot accept this," President Sarah Lawson of the United States said, slamming her fist on the table. "We've made it this far, and we won't let them treat us like we're nothing." The room was silent as the weight of her words hung in the air. Around the table, leaders from all corners of the world nodded in agreement. The decision had to be challenged, and humanity needed to respond with strength, not weakness. It was time to show the Galactic Council that they had made a grave mistake. "We'll have to send someone." General Anthony Evans spoke up. His voice was firm, filled with a sense of urgency. "Someone who can represent us with courage and strength. Someone who can stand before the Council and demand respect." But who could they send? The leaders turned to each other, searching for someone who could rise to the challenge. They needed someone with not only intelligence and diplomacy, but also the bravery to face a powerful and ancient council that had underestimated them. It wasn't just about words. It was about showing that humanity had the strength and resolve to stand on equal footing with any species in the galaxy. After a long silence, it was decided. They would send someone who represented the best of humanity, a person who had proven time and time again that they could rise to the occasion, even in the most dangerous situations. His name was Jack Harper. Jack was a soldier, a low-ranking officer in the Earth Defense Forces. He had never been involved in politics or diplomacy, but his reputation was solid. He was known for his quick thinking in the heat of battle, his unwavering courage, and his ability to adapt and overcome even the most impossible challenges. While not the obvious choice, Jack had something that set him apart: the ability to inspire those around him with his unshakable belief in humanity's potential. The decision to send him was met with mixed reactions, but it was the only choice. Jack Harper, against all expectations, would represent humanity before the Galactic Council. His mission was clear: go to the Council, stand before them, and make them regret their decision to subordinate humanity. As Jack prepared for the journey, he couldn't help but feel the weight of the responsibility on his shoulders. He was no diplomat, no leader of nations, but he had one thing the Council didn't seem to understand: humanity's unyielding drive to survive and succeed. He would show them that the spirit of mankind was far more powerful than they could ever imagine. He boarded the ship that would carry him to the heart of the Galactic Council's headquarters, knowing that his journey was just beginning. This was his chance to prove that humanity was not a species to be ignored, and that the Galactic Council would soon regret ever underestimating them. As Jack Harper stepped onto the transport ship that would take him to the heart of the Galactic Council, he couldn't shake the feeling of disbelief. Just days ago, he was an ordinary soldier in the Earth Defense Forces. Now he was humanity's representative in a galaxy of advanced alien species. The weight of the responsibility was heavy, but Jack knew he couldn't back down. The ship was sleek and advanced, designed to withstand the vastness of space and the dangers that lay beyond. But for Jack, it felt like a strange new world. The technology was beyond anything humans had ever seen, but the purpose of this journey wasn't about technology. It was about survival. Humanity needed to prove they were not to be dismissed or ignored. As he sat alone in the quiet cabin, Jack thought about how he had gotten here. He wasn't a politician, nor was he a diplomat. He had no experience with negotiations or galactic politics. He was a soldier, someone who had spent his life fighting for humanity's survival, whether against alien invaders or in the defense of Earth's fragile peace. But now, the greatest battle of his life would take place in a room filled with powerful beings from across the galaxy. Back on Earth, the leaders had chosen him because they believed in his ability to rise to the occasion. His strength wasn't just physical, it was his determination, his belief that no matter the odds, humanity could overcome anything. And that's what they needed now. Jack wasn't going to stand there and beg for respect. He was going to demand it. When Jack arrived at the Galactic Council's headquarters, he was greeted with skepticism. The station was a massive construct, hovering in the void of space. Alien species of all shapes and sizes bustled around the station, each one more advanced and more intimidating than the last. Jack felt small in comparison, but he refused to let fear take hold. The moment he stepped into the council chambers, all eyes turned toward him. The room was vast, filled with alien representatives from species Jack could barely even comprehend. There were towering beings with insect-like features, sleek creatures with metallic skin, and others that looked like nothing more than floating energy. They were all waiting for him to speak, to defend humanity's place in the galaxy. Jack stood tall, trying to ignore the intense stares. His heart pounded in his chest, but his resolve remained unshaken. He wasn't here to make friends or to beg for humanity's survival. He was here to show them that they had made a mistake. The president of the Galactic Council, a being with glowing blue eyes and a regal, imposing presence, spoke first. "Humanity," the president said in a voice that seemed to vibrate the air around them, "has shown itself to be a species of great potential. But you are still primitive, still a danger to the galaxy. Your time has not yet come." Jack met the president's gaze without flinching. He had heard those words before, spoken by those who underestimated humanity. But Jack knew better. He took a deep breath and spoke, his voice steady and firm. "You're wrong," Jack said simply. "Humanity may be new to the stars, but we fought and survived longer than you think. We're not here to beg for your approval. We're here to show you that we're worth your respect." There was a brief silence in the room as the council members exchanged glances. Jack's words hung in the air, and for the first time, the aliens seemed uncertain. The president gave a small nod, as if impressed by Jack's courage. "Very well, human. You will have your chance to prove it." And with that, the challenge was set. Jack would have to face trials designed to test his strength, intelligence, and willpower. The council would decide humanity's fate based on what he could do. But Jack wasn't worried. He knew that humanity had faced impossible odds before and come out victorious. This time would be no different. Jack Harper's heart raced as the transport ship cruised toward the Galactic Council's headquarters. As the massive station grew closer, its scale became even more impressive. It was a towering structure, a city in space, filled with countless species and advanced technology beyond what Earth could ever dream of. It floated silently in the dark expanse of space, like a beacon of power. Jack's ship docked with precision, and he was led into the heart of this monumental place. The moment he stepped off the ship, the reality of what he was about to face hit him. He had trained for battles, for wars, but this was different. He wasn't going to face an enemy on the battlefield. He was going to face the entire galaxy, alien leaders, powerful beings who had watched civilizations rise and fall, and who believed that humanity had no place among them. He followed the alien guide through long, sterile hallways that hummed with energy. Strange beings moved past him, paying him little attention. Some had multiple limbs, others had no eyes at all. Jack's mind raced as he tried to keep up. He had no idea what awaited him in the council chamber. All he knew was that he had to succeed. As he reached the door to the council chamber, he felt a wave of nerves wash over him. This was it. There would be no turning back now. The doors slid open with a soft hiss, and Jack stepped into the room. The chamber was enormous, filled with floating holograms and complex star maps. It was dark, with lights casting strange shadows across the walls. At the center of the room sat the members of the Galactic Council. There were 9 seats, each occupied by an alien of varying shapes and sizes. Some were humanoid, others more monstrous, their features so different from Jack's own that he almost couldn't believe they were the same species. Their skin shimmered with unusual colors, and their eyes glowed in ways Jack couldn't even comprehend. At the head of the table sat the president of the Galactic Council, a towering being with smooth metallic skin and glowing blue eyes. It was hard to tell where the being's form ended and the chair began, as it seemed to meld with the very structure of the room. The president's presence alone filled the room with a palpable weight, and Jack felt a cold shiver run down his spine. This was the being who had made the decision to subordinate humanity, who had judged them as inferior. Jack stood tall, his heart pounding, but he refused to let fear take control. He had come here to show them that humanity was stronger than they could ever imagine. He was not about to let a room full of alien species tell him that his people were nothing. The president of the Galactic Council spoke, his voice booming across the chamber. "Human, you stand before the most powerful beings in the galaxy. You have been brought here to prove that your species is worthy of standing among us. But do not mistake our hospitality for respect. You are a guest in our house, and your every action will be judged." The words hung in the air, heavy with authority. Jack met the president's gaze, his stance unyielding. The test had begun, and there was no turning back. "You've underestimated humanity," Jack said, his voice steady and clear. "We've faced worse challenges before. I'll show you that we deserve a place in this galaxy." The council members shifted, some of them eyeing Jack with amusement, others with silent curiosity. But Jack was not fazed. He had no intention of failing, not for himself, not for humanity. The tests that awaited him would push him to his limits, but he was ready. The president nodded, and the trials would begin soon. Jack couldn't help but feel a spark of determination ignite within him. The council might have thought they were in control, but they had no idea what humans were capable of. The room was silent, the air heavy with tension as Jack Harper stood before the Galactic Council. The alien representatives watched him with a mixture of curiosity and disdain. They had already decided what they thought of humanity. A species too young, too chaotic, too unpredictable to be given any power. But Jack was determined to change their minds. The president of the Galactic Council, his glowing blue eyes fixed on Jack, spoke again. "You have heard our decision. If humanity is to prove its worth, you must pass the tests we set before you. These trials will show us if your species is truly capable of standing among us. Fail, and you will remain nothing more than a subordinate species. Succeed, and you may earn a place at our table." Jack felt the weight of the challenge hanging over him. These tests were not going to be easy. The council had designed them to be impossible for a human to pass. Physically demanding, mentally exhausting, and designed to push him beyond his limits. They wanted to break him, to show that humanity was not ready. But Jack was determined to prove them wrong. The first trial was announced. It would test his strength and endurance. Jack was led to a large arena within the station, a place where the council had held trials for centuries. The arena was a vast, open space, filled with strange machinery and obstacles that seemed to stretch endlessly in all directions. A large screen hovered in the air above him, showing the faces of the council members who were watching with keen interest. "Your task is simple," the president's voice echoed. "Reach the other side of the arena within 30 minutes. Along the way, you will face obstacles designed to test your strength and resolve. Fail, and you will be disqualified." Jack nodded, his mind already racing. He had faced difficult challenges before, but this was different. These weren't just physical obstacles. They were a test of his will, his determination. He could feel the eyes of the council on him, their expectations high, their judgment ready. The trial began. The ground beneath Jack's feet shifted, and a series of mechanical arms emerged from the floor, swinging large, heavy objects at him. He dodged and rolled, his body moving with quick reflexes as he navigated through the first series of obstacles. His muscles burned, and sweat began to bead on his forehead. But he pushed forward. He had trained for this. He had trained for anything that might come his way. As he reached the next obstacle, a massive wall rose in front of him, blocking his path. A series of alien creatures, half mechanical, half organic, appeared from the shadows, their eyes glowing red as they advanced toward him. They were strong, fast, and terrifying. But Jack didn't hesitate. He grabbed a nearby piece of debris, using it as a weapon, and charged at the creatures. His movements were swift and calculated, each strike precise as he fought them off one by one. The creatures fell, and Jack pressed on, his body aching with exhaustion. He could hear the faint murmurs of the council members above, some sounding surprised, others unsure. But Jack didn't stop. He couldn't stop. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, Jack reached the end of the arena. His chest heaved as he stood, battered and bruised, but victorious. He had done it. He had passed the first test. The council remained silent for a moment. Then the president spoke again. "Impressive, human," he said, his tone less mocking than before. "You have shown strength, but this is only the beginning." Jack's eyes burned with determination. This was just one trial. There were more to come, and he would face them all. The council thought they could break him, but they had underestimated humanity's will to survive. He was ready for whatever came next. After passing the first trial, Jack Harper felt a mix of exhaustion and determination. He had faced physical challenges before, but nothing like this. His muscles burned, his body ached, and yet he stood tall, knowing that he had proven something important, not just to the Galactic Council, but to humanity itself. He had shown them that humans could endure, that they were not weak. But this was only the beginning. The council was not going to let him off that easily. As Jack caught his breath, a new voice echoed in the arena, the president's voice once again filling the air. "Impressive, human. But now we will test your mind. This next challenge will push your intellect, your ability to think under pressure. You must solve a puzzle, one that no human has ever been able to solve before." The floor beneath Jack shifted, and a new platform rose up from the ground. On it sat a strange, glowing object, unlike anything Jack had ever seen. It hummed with energy, casting an eerie light across the room. A series of alien symbols flashed on the object's surface, each one shifting and rearranging at an impossible speed. "You have 10 minutes to solve the puzzle," the president's voice boomed. "Fail, and you will be disqualified." Jack's eyes narrowed as he approached the glowing object. The symbols seemed to pulse in and out of existence, moving so quickly that they were almost impossible to follow. He had seen puzzles before, but nothing like this. The alien symbols were completely unfamiliar, and their meaning was unclear. Still, Jack focused, pushing the fatigue from his mind as he studied the patterns. The clock started ticking. Jack's pulse raced as he tried to make sense of the symbols. Each one was different, yet they all seemed to be connected in some way. His mind raced, connecting dots, trying to find any clue that could help him unlock the puzzle. He had been in life-or-death situations before, but this was different. There was no room for error. If he failed, everything would be over. The audience of the council watched in silence, their eyes fixed on Jack as he worked. The president, too, remained silent, watching closely. It was clear that they expected Jack to fail, just like every other human who had tried. But Jack refused to believe in failure. He had already proven that humans could face challenges head-on. This puzzle, this test of the mind, would not be the one to stop him. Jack's fingers hovered over the glowing object, trying to decode the symbols. His mind was sharp, sharper than it had ever been. He remembered something from his training, a lesson on pattern recognition. The symbols weren't random. They followed a set of rules, hidden beneath their chaotic surface. He began to manipulate the symbols, moving them in his mind, rearranging them until they started to form a coherent shape. It was slow at first, but Jack's confidence grew as the puzzle began to make sense. The glowing symbols shifted into place, and the object hummed louder, responding to his progress. With just seconds left on the clock, Jack pressed the final symbol into place. The object lit up with a bright flash, and the puzzle was complete. Jack stood back, his chest heaving with exertion, but there was no time to rest. The council remained silent for a moment, and then the president's voice broke the stillness. "Remarkable, human," the president said, his tone now tinged with something new, respect. "You have completed the puzzle, something no other species has ever done. You have shown not only strength but intelligence, but the next trial will test something even more important." Jack's heart raced again, but this time, it wasn't fear, it was anticipation. He had proven his worth, but there was more to come. He had passed the first 2 tests, but the real challenge was still ahead. He was ready. The tension in the arena was palpable as Jack Harper stood, breathing heavily but standing tall. The second trial had been completed, and the glowing object now sat silent on its platform, a testament to his success. The members of the Galactic Council, who had been watching with a mix of skepticism and curiosity, exchanged uneasy glances. Jack's ability to solve the puzzle no one else had been able to crack was unexpected. His mind, sharper than they had given him credit for, had won the day. For the first time since Jack had arrived, there was a change in the air, an undercurrent of doubt. The Council had prepared these tests, confident that no human could pass them. But Jack had proven them wrong twice now, and as much as they hated to admit it, they were beginning to wonder if humanity was more than they had given it credit for. The president of the Galactic Council, who had been silent throughout the trial, finally spoke. Impressive, his voice rumbled, deeper than before, tinged with an unspoken respect. You have passed 2 trials, strength and intellect. No other species has done this, but there is more. The final test will test your resolve, your courage. If you succeed, humanity will have proven itself worthy of standing among us. Jack nodded, his expression determined. He was not about to back down now. He had made it this far, and he would do whatever it took to show them that humanity was not a species to be underestimated. The final trial was set to begin. Jack was led through another door, entering a dark chamber. The floor beneath him shifted, and he was suddenly surrounded by thick mist. The only light came from faint glowing lines running along the walls. He couldn't see much, but his senses were alert. This was not a physical test like the first one, nor was it a puzzle to solve. This trial would be different. The voice of the Council's president echoed through the mist. You are now in the trial of the heart. In this chamber you will face your greatest fear, your deepest regret. You will be forced to confront your past and survive it. If you cannot, you will be disqualified. Jack's heart skipped a beat. This was something he had not prepared for. What could they possibly know about his past? He had fought in wars, faced countless dangers, but nothing in his life had been as terrifying as facing his own inner demons. As the mist thickened, Jack's mind began to race. What could the Council possibly throw at him? Would it be a battle with an enemy from his past? A moment of failure he hadn't been able to forget. He had no idea, but he knew this was a test of everything he had ever been through. Suddenly, a figure emerged from the mist. It was a familiar face, a face he hadn't seen in years. It was his younger brother, Tom, who had died in a tragic accident during Jack's last mission. His brother's face was full of sadness, but there was something else in his eyes, something accusing. Jack, the figure whispered, you left me behind. You promised you'd protect me. Jack's chest tightened as the memories flooded back. He had promised Tom that he would always be there for him, that he would never let anything happen to him. But he hadn't kept that promise. Tom had died because of a decision Jack had made on the battlefield. The weight of that guilt crushed Jack's chest. He had always blamed himself for his brother's death, even though there had been nothing he could do. But now, standing in front of him, was his greatest regret. He had failed, and his brother's death was a reminder of that failure. You were supposed to save me, Jack, the figure of Tom said again, his voice growing colder. You let me die. Jack's hands clenched into fists, but he couldn't respond. The pain was too much, the regret too deep. He had never been able to move past that moment. But then, a spark of defiance flared within him. This was not just about Jack Harper, it was about humanity. It was about rising from the ashes, even when all seemed lost. He had failed once, but he had learned from it. He had kept fighting, and that was what made him human. I couldn't save you, Tom, Jack said through gritted teeth, but I can still fight. I will never stop fighting. The figure of Tom faded into the mist, and the darkness around Jack lifted. The room was silent once more. As Jack stood there, panting and soaked in sweat, he realized something. He had passed the final trial. Not because he had overcome his guilt, but because he had faced it. He had acknowledged his failure, and yet he had refused to let it define him. He had shown that even in the face of the deepest regrets, humanity could stand strong. The silence in the chamber was broken by the president's voice. "You have done it, human. You have faced your deepest fear, your greatest regret, and emerged victorious. Humanity has proven itself worthy." Jack exhaled slowly, the weight of the trials finally lifting. The council, for the first time, looked at him with something new, respect, and with it, a deep sense of regret. They had underestimated humanity, and now they were forced to admit it. The silence that followed Jack's final trial was deafening. The Galactic Council, who had watched with cold detachment as he faced one impossible challenge after another, now sat still, their expressions unreadable. The room was thick with tension. Jack, standing at the center of the chamber, could feel the weight of their judgment pressing down on him. He had proven humanity's worth, but now it was time for the council to decide. For what felt like an eternity, no one spoke. The council members exchanged looks, their glowing eyes flickering with uncertainty. Jack had done what no human had ever done before. He had completed the trials that had broken the spirits of countless others. He had shown them humanity's strength, intelligence, and courage. But would that be enough to change the minds of beings who had once viewed humanity as nothing more than a nuisance? Finally, the president of the Galactic Council spoke, his voice low and measured. "Human," he said, his tone still full of authority, but tinged with a strange respect. "You have done what no other species has ever done. You have passed every trial we set before you. You have shown us strength, intellect, and resolve. You have earned our respect." Jack's heart skipped a beat. He had been prepared for criticism, for the cold judgment of the council. But this was different. The president's words were a far cry from the mockery that had greeted him when he first arrived. Jack had expected resistance, but now the council seemed to be considering the unthinkable, accepting humanity as equals. But the president continued, his next words cutting through the air with a sharpness that made Jack's stomach tighten. However, the president's voice echoed, "Your species has not yet proven that you can be trusted with power. We are not convinced that you can handle the responsibilities that come with being part of the galactic community. There is still too much danger in humanity's unpredictability." Jack's chest tightened at the words. It wasn't the full acceptance he had hoped for. The council had acknowledged humanity's strength, but they were still holding back, still hesitant. The feeling of being underestimated, of being treated as inferior, rushed back, threatening to swallow him. But Jack refused to be defeated. He had fought too hard, for too long, to let this moment slip through his fingers. Humanity had already proven its worth through actions, not words. They had shown resilience, the ability to rise from failure, and the courage to keep pushing forward even when faced with the impossible. "Then let me prove it," Jack said, his voice steady but filled with conviction. "You doubt humanity's ability to handle power. Fine, but we won't back down. We will show you that we can handle whatever challenges come our way. Give us a chance, and we will prove to you that we are not only worthy of respect, but worthy of trust." For a moment, the council said nothing. The president's glowing eyes narrowed as he considered Jack's words. The room seemed to hold its breath. The other council members, who had been silent until now, exchanged looks, some of them nodding ever so slightly, others deep in thought. Finally, the president spoke again, his voice quieter this time. "You speak with conviction, human. Perhaps you are right. Perhaps humanity is more than we first believed. You have earned the chance to prove us wrong. But remember this. Your actions from here on will determine not only your future but the future of your entire species. Fail, and the consequences will be dire." Jack felt a surge of relief wash over him, mixed with a sense of determination. He had done it. Humanity had been given a chance. The Galactic Council, for all their power and authority, had finally recognized that humanity was not a species to be ignored. But the real challenge had only just begun. It was now up to humans to live up to the promise they had made. The president of the Galactic Council stood, signaling the end of the meeting. "The decision is made," he said. "Humanity will no longer be subordinate. You will be given a seat at the table, but you must prove yourselves worthy of the trust we are placing in you." Jack took a deep breath, his heart pounding with pride and anticipation. It wasn't the end of the journey, but it was a beginning. Humanity had been given a chance, and he would do everything in his power to ensure they didn't squander it. The Council's decision echoed through the galaxy, sending shockwaves through every corner of the universe. For the first time, humanity had been acknowledged, not as subordinates, but as equals. And the path forward, though uncertain, was theirs to choose. The news of humanity's new status spread quickly across the galaxy, and the reaction was immediate. Some species were skeptical, while others were outright hostile. The idea that humans, a relatively young and untested species, could now sit at the same table as the oldest and most powerful beings in the galaxy was a shock to the system. For years, the Galactic Council had held sway, making decisions that affected the lives of countless species. Now, humanity had earned its place among them. But despite the outward calm in the council chamber, there was a growing unease among its members. The decision to grant humanity a seat had not been easy. The council's members were some of the most powerful beings in the galaxy, and they had underestimated humanity at every turn. The tests Jack Harper had completed, the way he had faced each trial with unflinching resolve, had left them questioning their own beliefs. For the first time, they had been forced to acknowledge that perhaps humanity was more than just a fleeting curiosity. As Jack returned to Earth, having completed his mission, the Galactic Council was left to deal with the aftermath. There was no turning back now. Humanity had been given a chance, but the decision had opened up a floodgate of questions. Could humans be trusted with the power that came with their newfound status? Would they use their place in the galactic community responsibly, or would they prove to be as unpredictable as the Council had originally feared? In the weeks following Jack's success, tensions within the Council grew. The alien factions, once united in their belief that humanity should remain subordinate, now found themselves divided. Some members were willing to embrace the decision, seeing the potential in humans and the strength they had displayed. Others, however, were unwilling to accept the idea that the Council might have been wrong. They believed that humanity, though impressive in its resilience, was too volatile to be trusted with any real power. The president of the Galactic Council, who had been the most vocal supporter of granting humanity a chance, found himself at the center of this storm. His once unshakable confidence now wavered. The whispers of doubt grew louder, and the president knew that the decision to bring humanity into the fold of galactic affairs had set a dangerous precedent. What if humanity proved to be a threat? What if they failed to live up to the expectations placed upon them? A private meeting was called among the Council's senior members. The debate was heated, with some demanding that humanity's seat be revoked, while others argued that it was too late to turn back. The president, still standing by his decision, listened carefully to the voices of those who were afraid. "We cannot undo this," he said firmly, his voice carrying the weight of the decision. "Humanity has earned its place. We cannot go back on our word." But not everyone agreed. A faction of the Council, led by a powerful alien general, made it clear that they were preparing for the worst. If humanity failed to live up to the trust they had been given, the consequences would be swift and unforgiving. The general was convinced that humanity's unpredictable nature would eventually lead to disaster. The Council's reckoning had begun. Jack's victory had shaken the very foundation of the galactic order, and now the Council had to confront the reality of their decision. Were they truly ready to welcome humanity into the fold, or would they regret it? As the debate raged on, the future of humanity in the galaxy hung in the balance. The Council's next move would determine whether humans would become a trusted ally or a dangerous force to be reckoned with. But one thing was clear: humanity had made its mark, and there was no going back. The days following the Galactic Council's decision were filled with a whirlwind of activity. News of humanity's new status spread across Earth like wildfire. For the first time in history, Humans were officially recognized as equals by some of the most powerful beings in the galaxy. Yet this newfound recognition came with both excitement and uncertainty. Back on Earth, the leaders of the world gathered to discuss the implications of the Council's decision. The unity that had been born in the wake of the Council's original declaration of humanity's subordination had now grown into something more. The human race had fought for its place, and they were not about to let it slip away. But this was just the beginning. They had earned the right to be at the table, but now they had to prove they were capable of handling the responsibilities that came with it. President Sarah Lawson addressed the global leaders in a conference broadcasted across the planet. "We've done it. Humanity has shown the galaxy that we are more than just survivors. We are creators, thinkers, and fighters. But this victory is not the end. It's the beginning of something much bigger. The Council has given us a chance, and now we must prove that we are worthy of it." Her words rang out across the world, inspiring many but leaving others uneasy. While most were hopeful, there were still those who feared the unknown. What would the future hold for humanity in a galaxy full of far more advanced and powerful species? Could they really live up to the expectations placed upon them? On the Galactic Council's side, the tension was far from over. The decision to elevate humanity had caused ripples through the established order. Some factions within the Council had already begun to call for action, questioning whether they had been too quick to embrace humanity's potential. The general who had led the opposition to humanity's acceptance remained vocal in his concerns, believing that humans were far too unpredictable to be trusted with any real power. Yet, despite the doubts, there was an undeniable shift in the galaxy. The once rigid walls of the Council had cracked, allowing new alliances to form. Alliances that included Earth. The first human ambassador, chosen by President Lawson, was now preparing to travel to the Galactic Council's headquarters. This ambassador, chosen for their diplomatic skills and keen understanding of humanity's place in the universe, would be the first to sit officially alongside the Council's members. For Jack Harper, the soldier who had started it all, the journey was far from over. He had proven humanity's strength, but now the real work began. He was offered a position as a key military advisor, tasked with helping Earth navigate the delicate politics and responsibilities of galactic diplomacy. His heart swelled with pride, knowing that his actions had sparked a change not just for himself, but for all of humanity. As Jack stood before the President of the United Nations, he couldn't help but feel a deep sense of purpose. The world had changed forever, and so had he. "We've earned a place in this galaxy," he said, his voice steady. "Now it's time to show them what humanity is capable of." The future was uncertain, and many challenges lay ahead. There would be those who doubted, those who feared humanity's rise, and even those who would try to undermine their progress. But one thing was certain: humanity had proven that they could rise to any challenge, and with the opportunity that now lay before them, they would shape their own destiny. The galaxy was vast, filled with both dangers and wonders. Humanity's journey had just begun. They had earned their place at the table, and now it was time to make their mark.